What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Seven Figure Photographer Live. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope everything is working well, and my microphone is falling. Hold on. I thought I was ready. Now I'm ready. Is Mia ready? Mia's got stuff all over her. I think you didn't set your camera right, but I'm not even. It's not like angled down at you for some reason. Oh, well, anyway. So, hopefully, for those of you who are here, you can say hi, say what's up, comment. Mia will respond to those comments. I'll show you Mia. She's over there. She's just, hopefully it's not showing all that information. And the battery is dead, by the way. You're a mess. Okay, so today we are going to talk about when in doubt, offer an upgrade. Now, this comes to me because honestly, I had an experience this weekend that was kind of like just funny and comical, and it changed like the whole course of my sale. I'm going to share that with you by the end of our live today. So before we do that, let's go ahead and jump in to our introduction and what's up, guys? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Marvin, and I have been in the photography industry for 25 plus years. While I love being a creative, business is my passion, and elevating the industry of photography is my focus. I created the Seven Figure Photographer to share my journey to seven figures and help others find their way too.
That's amazing.
You know, I think honestly, I think everybody would be lost if I was not a disaster. I think that's just like what everybody expects of me. It's to be expected that I'm a disaster. I'm going to say it every time just because it just makes me feel better. It drives me nuts when I say I'm a disaster, but the disaster is actually right beside me trying to get her camera set up. It's off. Did you turn it back on? Look, it says keep. Now turn it to video. Nope. What? I can't remember what I had to do to change it to video. There we go. Okay. Now Mia is official. There, that's better. Here's Mia. Everybody say hi to Mia. Mia, say hi to everybody. Okay. So we are back up and running. So today I kind of wanted to talk about this, and I've kind of talked about this a couple of times in the past. But I think it's a fun topic. The topic of sales, overcoming objections is always fun. And so that's more or less what we're going to talk about today, and how sometimes we just have to learn the right ways. Now, before I jump into that, of course, I'm going to mention Imaging USA, which is going on right now. I've been having terrible FOMO about it. In fact, seeing everybody's posts, because I chose not to go, seeing everybody's posts has been killing me this week. In fact, I think it kind of ruined my birthday. I was grumpy on my birthday. And I think it overall just had to do with me skipping out on the imaging and seeing everybody being there. So I'm sure we're not going to have as many people watching today because they're all busy with more exciting content at imaging. But yeah, if you're at imaging and you're watching this, I give you mad props. If you're not at imaging and you're watching this, I give you even more mad props. But we don't even have Tim hanging out with us today, so what the heck's up with that? So I've told you the story a couple of different times about how I had sales that were struggling or situations that were rough where I had offered them more or just really overcoming certain objections, listening to the things they're saying, and being able to identify, okay, what's really the issue here and how do we get past it? Of course, you guys have all had, and if you don't have, I always suggest you should make a list of all the objections you deal with on a regular basis in sales. Whether it be, one of my clients sent me a message the other day that says, well, how would I deal with the objection of why wouldn't I just buy the digitals from you and print them myself because I can get it cheaper? But realistically, understanding our industry and our business, we have to come up with our ways of dealing with those objections. Now, that's not typically, some of you might be really good on your feet, like just quick response, be able to respond to things quickly. Some of us are not so good at that, and we don't really respond to objections like wittily. I think it's taken me a long time for a lot of years, and I see this a lot with photographers. We just plain get like, as soon as we recognize there's some sort of objection or some sort of roadblock in a sale, we start to like cave in and we start to give up quickly. We start to offer the farm. We say, you know what, how about this? Before we've even taken a chance to sit back and let the system work out. Now, I did this exact same thing this weekend. There was some hemming and hawing going on, and I had a tendency to just jump back in. Now, the other thing you might notice is like certain times of the year, you might be more apt to sabotage your sales. In the wintertime, we typically have fewer sales sessions. And so sometimes I'm like, I don't really want to be there, or I'm like, just like, I need the money. And so I'm like, okay, like I'll give you a lot more for less money. Honestly, like, I hope none of my customers ever see this, but like, if you know me, like the best time to get what you want is to wait till winter time. Because typically a lot of times, like the sales session we had this weekend, where the client had waited forever, like to the point where I was actually really uncomfortable going into the sales session, because I was like, is there something wrong? Like, they had kind of avoided the sales sessions a good bit. They had canceled multiple times. I was like, is there like, did they just finally figure out that like they had, because they were a referral from one of our past clients, and that past client knows like that we're not cheap and that it's expensive. And so was there some of that worked into this? And so typically, like, we have times where we're more susceptible to those errors or those mistakes, but also, you know yourself better than anybody. I have a tendency, like I said, in the winter times to be a lot more free-willing with product and stuff like that. But for those of you, whatever your time is, like maybe you're just solid all the time. But I know if you're watching this, you might maybe just have more insecurities about your sales. I know I do, and that's basically what I'm saying is there are insecurities that we create. There's times when we react to things differently. For instance, we had a client this year we had a client that came in and was like, "Are you eating nuts with your microphone on?" It's probably like, no, I didn't. I had the microphone on, you goober. Anyway, we had a client that came in and basically, who was it? It was the client that was basically, oh no, it was last year. She basically was like, this was more expensive than I thought, or something like that. It was the people from Nampa, the lady that does like I can't even remember her name. That's how much of an impact she made on me. Yeah. So anyway, they came in, she decided, like, it was just one of those situations where it was very evident that she valued other things far more than pictures of her daughter. It was kind of like frustrating. It was in a time where like we were busy. We were crazy busy at the time. We were making lots of money. And so like it wasn't like right now where we're having like one sales session every 2 weeks, where I'm like, okay, I got to make as much money as I can. So I'm willing to give away a little bit more for that money. It was one of those situations of like, look, I don't even need your money and I'm not going to deal with your crap. So that's kind of like we all have different times where we're dealing with different things. So ultimately, something that if you guys have had a chance to read, I don't remember what month the business book of the month was, Sell or Be Sold. And maybe, I'm pretty sure Sell or Be Sold is the one that talks about how sometimes like offer them an opportunity to spend more. Like don't necessarily cut the cost down. Like oftentimes when people are objecting to spending a certain amount or they're struggling with something, instead of offering them less, offer them more. And that's kind of the idea behind the upgrade. Now, the other aspect to this, and the thing that I think you really have to consider, is oftentimes we as photographers don't think about giving the upgrade option. We just have like, this is our product, this is our product, this is our product, and we don't have upgrade options. One of the biggest things that we've done is we have kind of like our standard album options. We actually created 2 new upgrades this year that have done I wouldn't say they've been super stellar. It took us a while to get our Graphy Studio albums, like our big crazy albums, in place. And then we also have our grandparent albums, which are actually a smaller album than our traditional albums. But for years, we offered just one type of album. The only difference you could get was the size of that album. And so, what we did this year was we brought in a new album, the Graphy Studio album, which was a huge upgrade option. Went from our big album at $2,500 to this album, the Graphy Studio album, at $4,500. Now, any of you guys that have watched our Instagram reels, is that what you did the video on? The one of Mallory's album? Yeah, I think it was a reel. You could see, oh, it was a Samuel Marvin. Okay. So, well, but any of you guys that follow me on Samuel Marvin Photography, if you saw the video that we offered, or the video that Mia did of a reel of the new album from Graphy, a lot of people reached out. It actually had a lot better impact or reach than many of our videos had. A lot of people are just like, oh my gosh, that album is really cool. And it's just one of our big upgrade albums. We also do image boxes, which I consider, and I know it's kind of bizarre, but I actually call them unbound albums. And so it falls into our album category. It is an upgraded option. I've sold a few of those this year. And so it is to the extent like it adds a couple $1,000s to the sale, which that sounds like really extravagant, and it is. For those of you who maybe don't have like the higher sales options, it does give you an opportunity to really push those sales up. Now, the whole point in all this, and the reason I bring this up, is because sometimes, and like I said, we have a tendency to, when we experience the objections or experience the lull in our sale, when a customer gets really quiet and we're sitting there and it's just super quiet, and the first person to speak is typically the person that takes the hit, if you will. That's just kind of one of those things that we've learned in sales for a long time, is that the first person to speak is the person that loses. Now, oftentimes what we'll do in a sales situation is we'll say, okay, this is your option, this is the price. And then you shut up and you wait until the customer speaks. And sometimes it's this really, really awkward silence. And it's just a race, or it's what would the word be? It's a standoff, yeah. To see who's going to say something first. I struggle with that. Like when it gets quiet and awkward like that, I'm already a person that doesn't like to not talk. And so I have a tendency to just be like, and don't forget you can do this, or remember. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you always lose in that situation, because I've come out on top many times in that situation where I've been the first one to talk. But that is kind of a general idea. If you want to win in the game of sales, offer something, give them a price, and then let them sit on it. Let them think about it. The other thing you can also do is the value sandwich, which is not just say, hey, the price is $2,500, but the value sandwich is the concept of adding value, then the price, and then more value. So what that looks like is these albums are amazing. I've never had any of my clients dislike them. They love the ability to, sit down and have all their pictures in one place. Yeah, it does cost $2,500, and that's a lot of money. But the best part about it is that when you take one of these home, you're going to have them for a lifetime. They come with a lifetime warranty, and it's something that you're going to really treasure for the rest of your life. So what I did there was I just offered some value. I told them the price, and then I followed it up with value. And so instead of making it just like, oh, well, that's $2,500 and make it awkward silence, you're giving them the value sandwich. Now, so I want to tell you the story about this weekend. It was one of those situations where I was actually really concerned about the sales session. I was afraid that there was some sort of issue there. I knew that it was a one-off sales session, and we hadn't had sales sessions in a week or two. And so there was a lot riding on it. And typically it seems like whenever I go into a sales session with high expectations, they always end up low. When I go into them with low expectations, they end up high. And this was like a great example of that. The first thing she did was she sat down at the part of the table with the big Graphy Studio album. She opened it up and she just was like oohing and on, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is incredible." And so I kind of knew from like the moment one that she was like all about this album. So when things got going, we were talking, we were going over the things that she wanted. She mentioned that she wanted an album. I explained that this album was $4,500, and that if she did the album with the video and a wall grouping, that she got the free screen in there, right? And so she was all about it, but then I noticed that as soon as we did that, she went to just the basic album. And so I was like, okay, well, and this is one of those things in sales where really paying attention to your client and listening to what they're saying, hearing what they're telling you that they want is really important. And it's one of those things where it's like I struggle to be like, hey, I know you're already spending like $6,000, but you really seem to like this album, and it's going to actually be like $2,000 more for you to upgrade to that. And that's kind of a scary thing to do. In fact, it's really scary when you're talking to a client about money and you're talking about like $5,000 or $6,000 for the client, and they're getting really silent, or they're getting really slow about their decision making. They're struggling to say yes, or they're certain things. Like you can just tell that the sale feels like it's kind of going off the rails, if you will. Now, of course, for every one of you in any sales situation, you have to be able to read the social cues. You have to be able to understand how you feel about things. And the biggest challenge to this is going outside of your comfort zone. I absolutely hate offering upgrades. I love them because they're more money. They're more money in my pocket. I hate them because I hate feeling salesy. I hate like saying, oh, do you want to do this? Like with albums, we have our albums that start at $1,500. Most of them go with our $2,500 album. But then when we get into it and at the end, we're like, okay, well, do you want to add a leather combo cover to it? Do you want to add our $150 page upgrade, which is just getting the soft touch matte? Like those different things. Like I have a tendency to probably sabotage myself because I have a tendency to say, you probably don't want this, but like, you know, and so, but there is definitely like, I put it into a perspective where I tell people a lot of, you know, this is really just a preference thing. Like what would you prefer? And people are going to do it whether they like it or not. Now, if you pay attention to how they respond to things, maybe they touch the soft touch mat and they're like, ooh, I really like that. That's one of those things where then you can kind of push that envelope. Like, well, hey, like you really like the feel of that. Like, would that benefit you, you know, going forward? Or figure out ways to present it in a way that might be better. Now, going back to my sale from this weekend, when I showed the slideshow at the very beginning of the sales session, she thought that that was the video that we had done. And she was really excited about the slideshow, which was just all the pictures. It's just a Pro Select slideshow. I don't do slideshows. I think they're boring. But it is kind of, in a sense, a way to take photos and make them into video. We have a video option, for those of you who know us, that is like a far better option than that. It includes actual talking dialogue. It includes session stuff. It includes like video with me shooting, working with the client, that kind of stuff. And it typically makes people cry. So again, this is one of those things that I heard in the beginning. Towards the end of the sales session, we were landing on, I believe it was about a $6,000 sale. They had a $1,000 credit. Actually, sorry, it was a $6,000 sale. They had a $1,000 credit. So it was basically going to be $5,000 out of pocket. There was two objections that came up. One was, do I have to pay for this all right now? And clearly, like it was in a way like that objection is one of those you can kind of fill it out. I've had clients that have said that to me and done that to me where I'm like, okay, obviously they can't afford this money right up front, right? So do we have payment options? Yes, we have an in-house payment option, which we just charge 10% up front. Now, that's something you have to consider with each state. Like they have a maximum like interest rate that you can charge on certain things. So every state's different. So just make sure you look at your laws there. Then you have like, okay, well, we have a financing option through Mountain America, which is what we call our lifestyle lending option. The benefit to that is that they get the bank's interest rate, they get it as a credit card, we get paid immediately. That's a way that I sell that is I tell them we don't start on any of it until it's all paid in full, whereas if you do our financing through the bank, they pay us in full. If you do in-house financing, then you have a maximum of 4 payments depending upon your total, and we don't start on anything until it's done. So if it takes you 4 months to pay it off, we're not even going to start on it until 4 months down the road, which kind of sucks. So that's again one of those options. Now, one of the things that I did in that scenario was I did say we do have payment options, and that's typically triggered by do I have to pay for this all today? That's when I go into you don't have to pay for it all today, but we do have payment options to make that a little bit easier, and I tell them about that other stuff. Now, with this sale, we had gotten through that objection. I recognized that she understood she could either pay with a credit card, all that stuff. I have had clients that have had the credit available, and the reason I know this is because after everything was said and done, we get ready to fill out the application for the financing, and they're like, you know what? I don't want to mess with this. I'm just going to put it on my credit card. And so those are some of the things that, like, ultimately, just because they trigger some sort of like response, it doesn't necessarily mean they can't afford those things. Now, this particular client was hemming and hawing about what they were getting. They had settled on an album, a regular album, a grouping, and the video. Their total was about $7,000 or $6,000 minus their $1,000. And I looked at her and I offered her an upgrade. I kind of let it go for a little bit, and then I said, you know, I noticed you really, really liked this upgraded album. And I was like, to be honest, I would love to see more of them out in my customers' hands. So if you wanted to do this, we would basically be at about $1,000 difference. So I was increasing the sale by $1,000, taking it from $6,000 to $7,000. And remember, guys, this is in a scenario where she was already asking about like payment options. Does she have to pay for it now? And she was struggling overall about spending the money in the first place. Now I'm adding a whole $1,000 additional to it. Okay, the reason I tell you this is because it's really funny. I went back to the things that she had mentioned out loud in the beginning. She showed excitement about a slideshow. She was pretty much telling me no about the increase for the $1,000 for the bigger Graphy Studio album. And I remembered that she had said something about the slideshow, and I knew that specifically I had set up the slideshow to follow the video in the Graphy Studio album with the .mov option. So I flipped through and I just let the slideshow start playing. And I told her, I said, we can also put the slideshow on here. And she says, okay, done. And that's literally all it took to trigger and get her to spend the extra $1,000. And it was that quick. Like as soon as I offered, and I think you understand how little and easy a slideshow is. Like they pretty much make themselves like to add that on, or for that to be something so valuable to her that she was willing to not just spend the $5,000 she was struggling with, but to bump it up an extra $1,000. That simple upgrade, because of her perceived value, she thought that slideshow was that much better. That perceived value changed everything for the sale. So there's a couple of different lessons I want you guys to hear or to take away from this situation. Number one, listen to your clients. And not just listen, when I say listen, I'm saying pay attention to everything they're saying, doing, um, acting, all those things. I recognized in the very beginning that for some reason she thought that a slideshow meant something to her. I recognized in the very beginning that she loved the idea of this big Graphy Studio album. She used words that were like closing words, if you will. She was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is like how cool would this be?" She had already taken mental ownership of it, if you will. So I recognize those couple of different things, and I use that as an opportunity overall to offer the upgrade and increase the value of my sale. So ultimately, and the thing that I want to drive home about this is that sometimes your clients, when they're struggling to say yes to a sale, offer them more. Give them another option that might cost more. Don't always go backwards. Don't always say, oh, well, maybe what if we did this? Maybe we cut it back down. Instead, say, I don't want to push too much, but it sounds like you're really liking this option. We could do this. I've had this happen so many times where I've had clients, we were setting up groupings, and they were already spending way above what they wanted to spend. And but you could tell, like with groupings, it's one of those things when I'm putting groupings together, I'm waiting for mom to go, oh, like that's it. That's what I want. And when I get that, that's when I know that like we're good. Sometimes you just don't get that. And I've had times where clients were just really struggling with spending that much money. They had 4 canvas grouping up for $2,200 and they just couldn't commit to it. And I say, you know what, maybe you just like something more symmetrical, and I add that extra picture for an additional $800. All of a sudden it's a $3,000 grouping, and mom goes, that's it. I love that. That's perfect. And she just spent an additional $800 instead of what she was originally focused on. So again, I hope that works. Tasha says, love my payment plan, people. You know, honestly, I love the concept of payment plans because it's great, but I hate being a collection person. Like I hate having to like try to run credit cards and have them decline, call people and say, hey, what happened? That aspect drives me bonkers. So I've figured out a couple of different ways around that, but I do have my payment plans. I just make it hurt. So people are all about the percentage. Like if I, like for instance, our lifestyle financing or lifestyle lending, they have an introductory rate of 1.99. Like most people are like, okay, that's like 22% less than my credit card. So they get excited about it. Whereas if you finance in-house with me, it's 10% right off the top. So if you're buying a $5,000 order, it's going to cost you an extra $500. That's just money in the bank for me, which is great. But then I require that they put minimum 50% down and a maximum of 4 payments or 6 based on when in the year it is. The one other thing that I always do is I never let it go past graduation day. If it goes past graduation day, people just stop paying for it. So they know that there's no like credit, what's the word? They know that I'm not going to report it to credit. And so there's that aspect to it. But what questions do we have in here? Tim finally showed up. Thank you, Tim.
Are you ever worried about buyer's remorse?
Yes, actually. Buyer's remorse is a real deal. Now, I've gotten less of it lately, but there's certain things. And I try to recognize that ahead of time. And I'll tell my clients, I'm like, look, I don't want to push you into something that you're gonna regret. But I also have in my my order form, or when they sign, that has a clause that says basically don't change your order afterwards, and it gives them an option for me to go over it, have them sign it. Those are the things. And that's all done, like it's easily done. I know through ProSelect, that's how I do it. I don't know what you use, Tasha, for your sales system. But it's just something that I go over with them. I say, hey, here's this. Now, to be brutally honest, I'm not very good about like being a hard ass with people about that. I try to work with people. It happens, but I also try to offer options that will, or try to save the sale. I think that it's as much important about being a salesperson in saving a sale in that situation as it is making the sale. So if a client comes back to me and says, hey, I spent too much, like, can I change it up? You have to be like just understandable, or you have to work with them, or you can be a hard ass. If you had them sign a paper, be a hard ass. I don't care. That's up to you. You have to decide, is this a client that's going to come back down the road, and do I want them back? That kind of stuff. So, Tim says offering more. Read that in the seller. Yes, it is in the Seller Be Sold book. She says yes. Tasha says, yep, I make sure by April or 6 months, whichever comes first. Oh, that it's due. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what that, I'm sure you learned that through experience. That was something that we learned the hard way. We would set payment plans. We'd have people come in May. They'd set a payment plan and they were like, can we just get the grad cards done? They'd pay for the grad cards and then never pay for anything else, because once it's gone and forgotten, it just becomes a thing of naught, and they just don't even care at that point. So, which is sad, but it happens. So you just learn how to deal with those things in the best way that you can. So, I hope that was all beneficial to you. I know it was kind of like a whole lot of bouncing around, but the idea behind it is that keep in mind, number one, don't be the first to talk when you are in a stressful situation in a sale. And number two, don't be afraid to offer more. Because you'd be surprised that sometimes you just haven't hit the right spot. And sometimes it's all about perceived value. That slideshow was perceived value. It was not clearly, like, it doesn't cost me anything to put together the slideshow. I literally, with Graphy Studio, I put all the pictures into a specific folder, and boom, there's a slideshow on the end of that, and they think she thought it was great. I don't ever sell slideshows. In fact, I've always thought that the whole, what's the web, or Animoto, I thought that was like, why, but of course we offer video, so that was kind of, for lack of better words, juvenile to me. But it's not juvenile to well, obviously it's not juvenile to my clients. They think it's great. So great, grand, and wonderful. I'm all about it. If it's gonna make the sale and make it more, I'm all about it. So, Tasha says, "Yep, I've had a couple of butter's remorse over the years, and I've been for sure." Sorry, I just was laughing because you accidentally put butters instead of buyers, or it auto-corrected for you. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. Without question, you're gonna deal with it on an occasional basis. I wouldn't say a regular basis. It's an occasional thing. But yeah, Tasha, you should look into the Graphy Studio albums. Go look at our Instagram, because Mia will actually post the link. It's really cool. It takes a little bit to get used to their ordering system. It's a little bit different. The album itself, the one that we did, was about a $500 album. Adding the .mov, I think it's like a $200, maybe it's less, add-on. It's not cheap, but the idea behind it is to offer something that is just above and beyond, better than anything. And I think I really like it. Once we got our first one, it was like, man, this is freaking cool. So that's all right. I can never type. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you have a wonderful week. There's nothing exciting this week. No holidays, nothing. Right? Other than we have a shoot. Clint Parrish is here. Sounds like you need to add generic slideshow to the price list. It's one of those. I don't know that I would add it to the price list. I can just use it as a closing option. But it's good to have items. I don't remember what people call them, but you have like your items that are like your hidden items. You don't have them out on the table, But if you can't get a deal closed and you want to pull something out, then like, hey, there's this option. It's a little bit cheaper, but at least it'll get it done. Typically, you use those in situations or scenarios with like the client that I had earlier that I was telling you about that just didn't value her daughter's pictures. That particular client just pissed me off, and I was like, I'm not even going to cave. I'm not even going to offer anything. I just sent her packing, and she berated me. She was just, yeah, she berated her daughter. It was really sad. And that's honestly like, I don't have a whole lot of tolerance for that. Like, if you want to berate me or like question what I offer, no big deal. But when you start, when you show me that you don't even value your kids, I have a hard time with that one. And that's when I just turn into a dick. So, I wasn't supposed to say that on here, am I? Oh, well, they say worse things on YouTube. We're good. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. So, I guess peace out, Girl Scout. Take care. Don't have too much fun. And we out.